The people of YouTube hear our podcast on the platform, but they don't think that we are real.
Well, I mean, you never know with the way that AI is starting to take over, art, music, video games, and everything. Who's to basically say that we're not just robots doing all this?
So
I have nothing to say on this point, so let's move on.
Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!
Hooray! Hooray! Hooray! Squarewear, the robots are taking over the channel. Not the channel. I don't even know where we're going with this. Hey guys, welcome to the Really Useful Podcast. The podcast where we just basically come up with random intros that basically have no ending and we have no idea where the fuck they're going. I'm Zecoa the Diesel, and this is my good friend
Ultipot7.
And welcome to basically the 13th episode of the Really Useful Podcast, aka the 12th book of the Railway series, 8 Famous Engines. Even though one engine literally just got his book in the last episode, so technically he's not famous yet. But fuck it, we'll say he's famous.
So yeah, welcome to 8 Famous Engines, and our first book illustrated by none other than my all-time favorite Railway series illustrator, John T. Kenny.
Yep. To be honest, I think John T. Kenny is also my favorite illustrator for these books as well too. He does a really great job, especially after reading this book again and looking at the illustrations. I forgot how much of a damn good artist he can be with these books.
And there is a reason for that, actually.
which I'm pretty sure Barney will tell all about us in the background information.
Yeah, but before we do, I just want to say that we're finally done with if you missed our previous episode,
it was a doozy. Let's just say that
with Johnny Morris's narrations.
Yeah, yes, that too. We're also done with Johnny Morris. So now basically the only other Railway series narrator that we got to worry about until Tramway Engines is basically Willie Rushton.
Yep, Willie Rushton, who is a fan favorite amongst the fandom.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair with this book, I think he did like an amazing job narrating this book and everything.
And I agree. Like I will admit that Willie Rushton is a narrator that you have to get used to.
Yeah, same here. Especially for like American audience as well too. You definitely really have to get used to him. Definitely coming from someone that wasn't used to him the first time I heard his narrations.
The first time I heard him, I was 9 years old when I was reading the Railway series. And when I first heard him, I found him really annoying, and I found his tone, like, weird. I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
But as I got older, I grew to appreciate him more, to the point where I just basically laugh every time I hear his narration. And to this day, I can't get through a single book without listening to his narration.
Honestly, same here. Basically, when I also started listening to the Railway series as well too, I was pretty much on the same boat about his narrations as well. And then, like you, as I got older and everything, and I did also start to appreciate his narrations a lot more to the point where I'm like, you know what, this guy's not that bad, honestly. Pretty much like we said in the last 3 episodes with his narrations and everything. But basically, when Willie Rushton can, narrate and put a lot of energy, he could put a lot of damn energy into these books, especially into the characters and the scenes.
Yeah. If there's only one criticism I can give him, because I don't think he has any flaws as a narrator, aside from the voices, there's a couple criticisms that are just minor for me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that sometimes he skips over some words, but hey, that's better than skipping the entire page.
True. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are also moments in this book where he also adds a few words as well too. I think.
Yes, and he does it again in the next book, actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I can't remember which story it was, but I think there was like one story where he did like added a few more words, because I remember like some of the parts that he did add were not in the book and everything.
Yes, And actually, that stopped very quickly because he was. I don't know if it was the Wilbur that had a problem with it or the recording engineers that had a problem with it, but that went away pretty quickly once we got to book 15.
Oh, okay.
So it only lasted like for like 3 books, and that's it. But yeah. So, anyways, let's get into the history portion. And as I said earlier, we have a new illustrator for this series, and his name is John Theodore Kenny. It says here, like Dalby, he went to the Leicestershire College of Art.
However, unlike Dolby, Kennedy was actually a real big fan of trains. Actually, was
Yes.
actually a real big fan of trains, and so much so that he would actually practice drawing trains and stations wherever he got the chance.
Here's what Wilbur had to say about him.
He was not a fuck up. That was the only good thing about him.
No, he said
I know.
we got on
Okay.
splendidly. He was as different from Dalby as chalk from cheese.
I mean,
Yum.
that's one way of putting it, I guess.
He was interested in the work and used to go down to his station and draw railway engines from life.
Nice.
The engines which Kenny drew appear longer, larger, and more sealed. I don't know how to pronounce that, but okay.
So, I think basically what Wilbur like is getting at is that like unlike Dolby, where like the trains can sometimes go from being lifelike to toy trains. John Kenny makes sure that like his trains actually look like trains. They actually look pretty much real, real to the point where like you can actually see them working on a real life railway.
Far less than the toy trains of Dobby.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. Kenny illustrated some Ladybird books
Oh,
before
interesting.
doing the Railway series,
Interesting.
and he actually wrote a couple books actually about horses.
Oh, nice.
He was a big fan of horses, and when he retired in 1962, he continued to paint horses.
Oh, nice.
Unfortunately, though, in 1968, he lost sight in one eye.
Yeah, and that's really and honestly that was pretty much the main reason why Wilbert and Ward, sadly had to let him go and such, mostly because of like
No, actually, Kenny stepped down. On
more
his
so that
own.
Kenny stepped down, yeah. But I'm also pretty sure that like Wilbur would probably also understand why he stepped down as well too.
Yeah, and this is just me, but I have started to notice that by the end of his tenure, like you could start to notice a little bit of flaws in some of the illustrations, but it's understandable considering like
Pretty
how
much,
much.
yeah, pretty much what the man had to go through during like his last years and everything, working with the Railway series.
But honestly, if you think about it, he went out with a bang on with Gallon Old Engine. Like
He
if you
did,
take a look at those illustrations, like despite the fact that that man was suffering from poor eyesight, he excelled in illustrating the books.
he really did.
And yeah, and so this is his very first book, and it's not perfect because there are a few illustrations that are kind of awful in my opinion. And this is coming from someone that loves him to death, and if he says something negative about him, I get nauseous.
Yeah. Actually, okay. Actually, now that we're talking about his art and some of his flaws, real quick, as I'm now taking a better look at like this illustration right here for the cover art. How do you feel about this cover art overall, at least? Like, how do you think it looks?
I can only describe it with one word: marvelous. Absolutely marvelous. It looks beautiful.
Alrighty. It doesn't really look all too bad to me, honestly, as well too. Although the faces on some of the images do look, the more I look at it, they kind of almost look like the faces you kind of see on, the faces you kind of see on those like NPC memes and such. With basically
I will admit,
triangle nose and faces.
I will admit, Percy's face looks a little bit weird.
Percy's face look a little weird, and pretty much as you go further and further down the road, it almost kind of look like their faces are shrinking.
But but you gotta remember, the illustrations were done on small paper, 10 by 8 inches.
Yeah, true. That is understandable.
And when you have a small space to work with, how the fuck are you gonna fit 8 engines into one picture? It's impossible.
Well, I mean, don't tempt artists. They'll find a way.
Faces. How the fuck are you gonna fit 8 faces of the inches into one picture?
True.
Like, so I don't blame Kenny for that. I blame the paper proportions.
We blame the piece of paper.
And spoiler alert: there's gonna be one illustrator that's gonna come much later that had trouble with using that style of portrait
Yes,
to.
yes, we're literally going to talk about them in the very next season.
Yep, in season three.
Alrighty.
So Infamous Engines. I will say that when I read this book, I was very surprised. Like, to me, this was the very first book I can remember that I actually enjoyed reading, and I was surprised to see that there were some stories that I hadn't even heard about before,
Yeah,
like Gordon Goes Forward.
yes. Now that you mention it, well, I mean, technically, this isn't really the first per se. Like, I mean, technically, we could say that Mrs. Kindly's Christmas was the first that never really got adapted to like a full episode. But even then, at least with Mrs. Kindly's Christmas, it was at least acknowledged in a flashback.
I
So
meant
we
to say,
weren't. So
I meant to say like this was the very first book that I read that I was like, hang on, what are these stories? I never read the stories before. Except I never read some of these stories before.
So basically, most of the stories so basically you read the stories from the book first before you got to saw the TV version episode of these stories.
Yes, some of them, yes, two of
Uh,
them actually, two of
oh,
them.
nice.
Yeah. Obviously, Gordon Goes Foreign never got adapted, so that was the first time
Yeah, I mean, we do know that it was planned, but sadly, due to budget reasons and everything, it was basically scrapped. And actually, they did try to do it twice, one for season 2 and one for season 3. But again, budget reasons and everything, and it was like, yeah, we're gonna have to scrap this.
the same applied for Percy's Promise and Double Heather.
Technically, Percy's Promise and Doubleheader, I mean, they were canceled-ish, but they weren't canceled. They were just basically moved to season 3 once they had, like, a better budget to work with.
I also think like the the effects couldn't be done yet because they hadn't mastered how to do rain and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, for a Doubleheader and everything, Doubleheader, I can actually see them, moving into season 3 because like we said, Gordon goes foreign, never got adapted into season 2 episode. Britt and David probably realized that it wouldn't make sense to also adapt Doubleheader if they can't do Gordon goes foreign. So probably what their thought process was that basically they had enough budget to do Gordon Goes Foreign that basically hopefully they were able to move those 2 episodes into season 3. But because they ran into the same problems again with season 3, they were just like, you know what? They were just probably like, you know what? Fuck it. Doubleheader's just gonna be his own standalone episode.
And to be honest, it can be its own episode if you think about it.
It
Like,
can,
all you gotta do
it
is do some small
can,
changes.
but I guess we should say that once we get the Doubleheader itself.
But just saying, like, all you gotta do is some small changes, and boom, it can be its own episode.
Pretty much, yeah.
And let's see if anything else I missed here.
Actually, there is one information we do need to
Oh
share
yes,
regarding
this
the
is very
book.
important. Yeah, this is very important.
Yes.
Most of you guys know that most Thomas fans, I've read this on forums, I read this on the wiki, and I read this everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
that supposedly, quote unquote, this was supposed to be the final. This was what Wilbur wanted to be his final book for the series, and actually, it does make sense because the Edges go to England to prove their existence. So, and it does feel like a finale of sorts.
In a way, yes.
But the publishers didn't want him to stop and urged him to continue. Unfortunately, I tried looking for that rumor to see to see if it's real. But I've gone to the Thomas the Tank Engine Japan like 4 times, and I still can't find if that rumor is true or not.
Yeah. So pretty much at this point in time and everything, we can't really find the evidence to back up the claim that Wilbert Awdry planned to have this book be the finale and everything. So basically, if anyone in the comments or anyone that's also diehard Thomas fans like us can find us some solid evidence that basically proves that Wilbur Awdry did plan to have this book be the finale, let us know down in the comments and everything. And basically, hopefully one day we'll be glad to basically bring it up on a future episode, or at least bring it up in the next season if we ever find that information.
If you guys find any articles, or if you find mention.
Basically, what Barney's saying, like, basically saying, yes, if you find any, like, articles, or at least any somehow somehow, like, lost interview that Wilbert Awdry had with someone that did mention that A Famous Engines was supposed to be his final book, please let us know.
Or if you find a paragraph on the Thomas the Tank Engine Man, and if you see it there, please write it down below in the comments,
Yes.
because I need to find that to see if it's true.
Yes. Me personally, I can definitely see where the people are coming from, and that Wilbur Awdry attended for this book to be the finale, because, yeah, as Barney says, in a way it does actually feel a finale of sort, because basically, well, I guess it's not really the first, because technically, we could say that, like, the last story, and even, like, there's been a couple stories where basically, there have been books where it's like it's not really focused on like one one specific engine, but more like a group of engines or a group of characters and everything. But the way that like this book is being presented, especially with the way the engines on Sordor are now interacting with other engines from other railways and everything, and then we get to the grand finale of them going to England and such. It actually does feel in a way that Wilbur was actually ready to cap off the Railway series with this book. But then there's the other part where it does come into a little doubt that like if this was supposed to be the last book published in the Railway series, because we do see more books coming out still yearly and everything. So like I said, or at least like we said and such. If you guys could find us any actual information or solid evidence that this book was intended to be the last book in the Railway series, please let us know.
Yeah, please do, because we love we love to believe that it's true, because it does feel like a finale. To tell you the truth.
More like Barney wishes to believe that was true. Wishes that was true. So please let us know that it is true, so he can sleep soundly at night.
Another thing I just found out, according to the book, is that this book was supposed to be titled "The Fat Controller's Engines."
Which actually makes sense, in a way. Because although it would be very interesting to have like to have not only like the title of the book being the Fat Controller's Engines, but also being the same title for the last story.
So basically, if this book had been published as "The Fat Controller's Engines," this probably, let's see if I'm right, this probably would have been the first book to have a title story, if that makes any sense.
It would actually, yeah, you would. I do actually see. I actually do understand what you mean by that.
It would have been the first one to have a story named after the book. And yeah, I think that's about it for the fun facts, because until someone confirms the finale book theory, that's all for now.
Yeah.
Alrighty
then. All right. Well, let's jump into 8 famous engines and such. This book is going to be a little interesting, at least for me, because if you people saw in the last episode of Percy the Small Engine, I did get. I think I did give a little hint that our opinions might be slightly different. In this, basically in this episode. So I will basically let you guys know a little bit ahead of time that my views on the book is starting to soften up a little bit. So we're going to see if basically this is going to be another book where basically I thought it was going to be bad, or I thought it was going to be meh, but the more as we talk about it, I realize, this book's not that bad. So, alright, Barney, go ahead and kick us off with the very first book of the 8 famous engines, Percy Takes the Plunge.
Okay, Percy Takes the Plunge. So Percy Takes the Plunge starts off with Percy talking to some engines from BR, or the other railway, as the book likes to call them.
Mm-hmm.
And he's basically telling them about his time surviving the flood from the previous book.
Mm-hmm.
And the engines are saying like, "Oh, Percy, you're brave," but then one of the big assholes, Henry, comes in.
The big giant green whale comes up and tells the others to fuck off.
I swear, the big asshole nickname over it got stuck on me, because to be fair, Gordon, Henry, and James are big assholes.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Like separately, they are the big assholes, but then when they're together, they're the bigger assholes.
Yeah. So, anyways, one of the big
Anyway,
assholes, Henry, comes into the shed because he wants to rest, and he tells the engines to fuck off. Like this is the shed is only for the Fat Controller's engines, and Percy gets mad that Henry sent them away, and in return, Percy makes fun of Henry singing the song. Once an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain, basically reminding him of his.
which by the way, I love how Willie Rushton narrates that part and everything. He sells it so perfectly.
Yes, I agree. So then Percy goes with Thomas, where Thomas is looking at the sign, the danger sign at the key, and Percy asks him like, "What's so bad about the sign?" And Thomas tells him that danger means falling down something, and Percy's like confused, saying like he can't see a mine because Thomas told him about his incident with the mine, and what Percy doesn't know is that the foundations of the key had sunk and that the rails have were pushed down to the sea by the water by the rising tide,
Yes.
and so Percy develops like a big curiosity or I don't know, maybe a big plan to pass the time.
Basically, that sign is pretty much tempting him to actually go forward and see what happens. Pretty much the same, kind of feeling that Thomas felt in that mine incident.
Pretty much. So Percy tries to pass it a couple days for a few tries, but the driver always stopped him, saying like, you ain't doing that shit."
And Percy is
So
just like, "Try me, bitch. We'll see."
so Percy one day decides to ask the trucks to push him when they get to the key, and the trucks are excited about it because they never been asked to bump an engine before. So they get to the key. The trucks prepare their plan, and they push him way beyond the sign. And after they bump Percy, while bumping Percy, I should say, the driver and fireman fall down from Percy's cab, and
Mhm.
Percy's pushed all the way to the sea. And well, he gets in trouble for passing the sign and disobeying orders. And it isn't until nighttime that he's rescued because the tide wasn't high enough. And well, he's sent to the works the next day on Henry's train, and Henry just teases him, saying like, "Hey, did you like the water?"
And
And
Percy's
I
just
am
like,
surprised. In a nutshell, Henry gets back at him, saying like, "Oh, don't worry about the water. I'm sure you'll like it better next time." But Percy is quite certain that there will never be a next time.
probably will, probably not. You never know.
You never know.
Actually, no. Now that I think about it, Percy actually did get stuck in another flood. One time later in a Himalaya. Now that I remember.
Oh yes, I
So,
remember it as well.
yeah, technically he actually did do it again next time.
As far as in the Railway series, I can't remember, but maybe when we get to the other books, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see.
So Percy takes the plunge. This is kind of down the mine part two, if you think about it, but way different. Instead of Percy falling down the mine, he actually falls into the sea. Well, not actually falls into the sea. He's basically pushed into the sea by the trucks. And I'll be honest with you, while I do love the TV series episode, I gotta give the book version some credit because, like, this is the first time we get to see engines that are not part of Sodor.
Yes, that is actually true, and pretty much like you. I actually do love that we get to see pretty much engines outside of Sordor, and pretty much that pretty much sometimes comes and visits the other engines on the island of Sodor for a little bit. It definitely does add a lot of world building to pretty much the universe that we know as the island of Sodor and such.
Yes.
Oh,
By the way, if I may,
yeah, go ahead.
ask, what does world building technically mean? Like, does it build the world around it, or?
So, yes, in a way, world building is just pretty much so. Okay, so let's say you have a series or you create a series and such, and let's say you create a fictional world on your own. You have your own fictional world. You have your own set of rules to set fictional world that pretty much you can make it however you want to make it and such. So pretty much with the island of Sodor and everything, when it comes to Wilbert Awdry and such, is that when Wilbert and his brother George basically made the island of Sodor, they basically were almost in a way given a free range to basically make the island however they want and such. So basically, if they wanted to make an island as a safe place for steam engines and such, where steam engines can, live in harmony with diesel engines and everything, and still work very hard, they could do that. And pretty much any time in the series, if they keep wanting to pretty much expand the world building however they see fit, as long as it still fits within the rules and everything. Pretty much, again, they're given a free range to do that because they were the ones that
So
created the world
basically,
in
in
the
other
first
words,
place.
so basically, in other words,
So pretty
it
much
can work as
like
long as it doesn't break the rules of the universe.
yeah, okay. So another way I can say this, I think you've told me you play Minecraft before, right?
Yes, I
Okay,
used to play
so
it a lot.
yeah, okay. So like imagine that you're playing Minecraft and such, and you want to make your own world or your own town or your own place, however you want to be and everything. Pretty much, you are in the right to basically expand that world and set rules and everything. However much you want to expand it until pretty much you think it's good enough and such, and that's pretty much like that's pretty much any foundation when it comes to pretty much any fictional medium, whether it's like books or movies or series and such. That's just basically like what basically world building is. Just basically a setting that the creator that the creator made and everything, and they can pretty much make that world however they want to make it and such.
Okay, thank you for telling me. All right, back to the story.
So pretty much we left off basically praising the book version for basically showing entrance from the other railway. Pretty much outside of when like in a TV series it's pretty much Bill and Ben, which pretty much at the same time I do also give props for David and Britt for actually giving a little sneak peek about Bill and Ben themselves, and but pretty much the more I think about it and everything. It does make sense on why Bill and Ben are at the harbor because usually that's where they go whenever they want to drop off the China Clay Works and such with trucks and everything.
Speaking of Bill and Ben, I can't wait till we get to season 3 because I'm
Yeah, me
excited
too.
to get to know them.
Uh huh.
But yeah, using Bill and Ben was an intelligent choice, I will say, because
It was
I believe they were also planning on using Donald and Douglas for that scene as well.
Honestly, I'm glad they did not go that route because technically Donald and Douglas was not supposed to be there just yet until like after the Duck and the Diesel trilogy.
Yeah, but yeah, they made an intelligent choice with Bill and Ben.
They did. They did. They basically did, and pretty much actually, this is more for the TV series again. But the Thomas Wiki actually pointed out that Diesel actually makes a cameo in the episode. You can barely see him, but pretty much in the night scene when Percy is basically being
Rescued,
lifted onto
yeah.
his flatbed. Yeah. You could pretty much listen to his horn. You could actually see him like traveling on the railway, and I don't know if this was done intentional or not. But in a way, it's kind of clever because pretty much like right after that episode, it's actually the Duck and the Diesel trilogy. So I don't know if that was something that Britt and David did it just by coincidence because they knew what the next episode was going to be, or they just did it because randomness.
I'm guessing they did it as an Easter egg or something, or maybe because they needed an engine in the background working.
Yeah. That's also possible too.
Yeah, because remember the Markland. I don't know if the Markland engine was taken out of service by the time season 2 was filmed.
I think it might have because off the top of my head, I actually don't remember any scenes where like trucks or coaches were like. Well, actually, I think there
Yes,
was like
actually,
maybe.
yes. In the very first episode, actually, when Toby takes Annie and Clarabelle, and Thomas, Percy, and Nicole,
Yeah.
and you see some trucks,
Are pretty much being moved by themselves, and we don't see like any other engines there. And I think it happens again in Duck Takes Charge when we see Percy pulling the coaches right by the single box and everything. I think that happens again, but I don't remember.
And it also happens in Diesel's Devious Deed.
Yes, I believe. Yes, I actually believe you're right on that. So okay, then I think we can safely say that yeah, this was the season where basically it was the last appearance of the Markland engine.
I'll have to verify that, but anyway, back to Percy takes the plunge.
Alright, yes.
One thing I will say that I remember this. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
Go ahead.
most of the guys, most of the U.S. fans that grew up with Thomas DVDs, by the end of Anchor Bay's tenure with the show, they started getting lazy with their covers,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there was a DVD called Percy Takes the Plunge, and I saw the cover, I was like, holy crap, new episodes, great. Until I pop it on the DVD player, and I noticed that it's basically season 2 episodes, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only that, but actually, I kind of had a little similar story to that as well too.
tell me.
So basically, before I had the Percy Takes a Plunge DVD, basically I had two versions of the Percy Takes a Plunge episode. One version was at the Best of Percy VHS, which was basically the first time, was basically my first introduction to Ringo Starr as a narrator and everything. And pretty much right off the bat, I already knew I was dealing with a different narrator just by the tone of his voice compared to George Carlin and such. Because I remember as a kid, I was just like, oh, okay, this is a little interesting. Who's this guy?
One of the fucking Beatles.
Yeah. Pretty. Well, also to be fair, it was also coming from a kid and never, still to this day, like never really grew up with music all too much and everything. So pretty much, I had no idea who the fuck the Beatles were at that age and everything. So
Me neither. So
but
you're
yeah.
not alone on that.
But anyway, and pretty much the other DVD I had that had Percy Takes a Plunge was basically the time where basically I don't know if it was hit or it was I don't know if it was hit entertainment or it was just the Take Along series. But basically it was part of that. It was basically part of that Take Along series where basically they give you the set based on the episode on the DVD that you got and everything. And basically, I had that. I had James and the Trouble with Cheese one. I even had Thomas and the Special Letter one. Was actually going to be, another book that was actually going to be another story in this book we'll be covering soon and such. But yeah. So to try to wrap up the story and everything. So by the time I saw the DVD for Percy Takes a Plunge, I did not get it at first because I was like, what? Because basically I was just like, why do I want this? Basically, why do I want this when I already have the episode on a different DVD and VHS and everything? Not realizing that basically Percy Takes a Plunge, which is basically a what do you call it? Like
It was basically Daisy, the VHS. Put on the DVD.
yes, pretty much. Yes, pretty much. It was just basically Daisy to VHS, except instead of Daisy, they had Percy Takes a Plunge as the cover and everything. So. By the time I realized it, it's actually a little fun story about that one too. The first time I actually realized it, or at least had a feeling it was something like that, was basically when I brought Henry and the Elephant on a DVD and everything. Because again, much like with Percy Takes the Plunge, I already had it.
Oh, you have no idea. When I saw that cover, you have no idea how freaked out I got. I was like, oh no, it's that fucking elephant that scared the crap out of me.
That I can understand. For those wondering what Barney means by that, go watch our episode on Troublesome Engines to get more context and such.
All right, so I'll try to give it like an abbreviated version of it very quickly. For the ones that missed episode 5, in Henry and the Elephant, the episode, when the elephant comes out of the tunnel, I got scared. Well, because it looked so angry.
Mm-hmm.
And the scene that freaked me out the most was when the trunk actually fired water at Henry.
Yeah.
And it was also because of the noise that George Carlin made, and it scared me so much that I was like, you know what, fuck this episode.
Basically, I still remember the cake scene. It looked like an eye.
It looks like a fucking eye. I'm saying the truth. It looks like a fucking eye.
So, yeah.
But I've grown to actually enjoy that episode. Actually, to the point where it's not one of my favorites.
Yeah, that I can understand. But going back to the DVD.
But anyway, finish your story so we can get back to the story.
Yeah. So pretty much try to make a long story short and everything. So basically, when I bought the DVD Henry and the Elephant, that's when I realized that I actually had a gallon oil engine on me, and I was actually pretty excited because I remember seeing that VHS a lot during those like promos and everything that you got from like other Thomas VHSs and such.
Great cover, by the way. Great cover with Gordon on the front cover.
Yes, that version. I wanted to find that for so long that I could never find it. But by the time I finally did have it and everything, I was just like, are there any other DVDs that are like this? And I think what actually did confirm my theory was when I went to the Thomas wiki and everything, and I pretty much saw that yeah, I was right. Daisy had the same thing, except it was just Percy Takes the Plunge. And fun fact, I actually have that DVD too in my collection. So anyway, yes. So all right. So yeah, I'm done with my story. Let's get back. Let's get back to the other story real quick.
Yeah, Percy takes the plunge. To be fair, I actually really love this story. Like, I would say that I like it even more than Down the Mine, even though Down the Mine's a classic.
Mm-hmm.
Percy does get what he deserves for being an egotistical bitch,
Pretty much, yeah.
and it proves to show that being egotistical is not going to get you anywhere.
That and just like the Fat Controller said, you do have to obey orders sometimes because sometimes some of them are there for reasons.
Yep, correct. I will say that Willie Rushton did a fantastic job with this story. Like,
Definitely, I do agree with you right here. Basically, my favorite part is just basically pretty much that after Percy got sent to the sea and everything. I just basically like how he basically captured that scene by making Percy shivering every time that like he tried to talk to the Fat Controller.
please, sir, get me out, sir. I'm truly sorry, sir. And here I go again, sounding like fucking Mickey Mouse.
I'm truly sorry, Walt. I did not mean to take your last cheese.
But I don't have too much to say on this story because what can I say that hasn't been said about this story? It's a classic. It's another classic for a reason, and I'm sure a lot of kids love this episode because I'll be honest with you, and this is something that the Unlucky Talk brought up. Percy had the best crashes before the A Better Before Gordon crash came along.
Pretty much, he does, and it's not going to be the last crash that we're going to see of him from this season, actually.
Yes, there is another big one coming up much later on in this season.
Mm-hmm.
For Percy Takes the Plunge, this is a really good story, and I don't have too much to say, so I'll give the story a perfect 9.
Oh,
it deserves it.
Alrighty then. Well, as for me, I don't have too much to say on the story either, because like you, it's a classic for a reason, and this was one of those stories as a kid I always loved watching every time that I got the chance and everything. And to be fair, at least going by TV series logic, going by TV series and everything, my preferred narrator for that episode would always be Ringo Starr and such. More so for the fact that it's just the way that Ringo captures that story actually basically actually make that story more memorable than George Carlin's version and such. Not to say that like George Carlin's version was bad or anything, but it was just like the tone that Ringo Starr went for that story that basically sell it more to me. And that's pretty much the same way as I felt the way that Willie Rushton was narrating this story and everything, especially with the way that he was narrating Percy's voice and everything. Because you can see in the beginning, just like as Barney said and everything, he basically started off as like a cheeky little shithead like Thomas and such, making fun of Henry after pretty much he sent his friends away and such, and then pretty much you can see you can really hear in that tone of voice when Percy is just like, I can't see a mind. Are you blind, Thomas? You can pretty much see in that tone of voice that he is really tempted to pretty much push himself, pretty much go past that board and see just what kind of danger it was, and then pretty much when go ahead.
I just remember something now that you were talking about it.
Yeah.
I fucking love that illustration where Thomas and Percy are looking at the board.
Oh yeah, same here.
I even posted it on this channel a couple months ago, if you remember, and to see if people say like, this is probably one of the best illustrations of the Railway series ever, and a lot of people agree with me. Like, wow, it is one of the very best illustrations ever.
It is. It pretty much is. And then pretty much, once Percy starts passing that danger sign, again, going back to Willie Rushton's good narration, you can, again, he sells that point perfectly when Percy realized that he had done fucked up, and now he regrets his decision literally right before he gets sent to the bottom of the sea and everything. And also going back to what you say about the book being better than the TV series version, I do agree. Yes, I do agree that like the book version actually does actually does sell the point that Percy can't really understand like what kind of danger there is, around the key because if you took a look at the illustration and everything, especially with the way that Kenny basically drew it and everything, you could pretty much kind of see Percy's point in that and that basically that maybe there is no danger to it. Whereas basically in a TV series and everything, you could in a TV series and everything, they basically really do show you that the rails are sloped downward to the sea, and that's why the danger sign is there. So it's kind of does kind of take away, I guess, the mystery part of it, and kind of makes you question how good is Percy's eyesight if you can't really see something like that from that far away. But yeah, you pretty much already covered all the other points. I did want to say in the scene because yeah, like you said, the illustrations are really good and everything. Not only with the part of Thomas and Percy looking at the danger sign, but also the part when Percy is being rescued at nighttime. That's another one that is beautifully drawn by Kenny and everything. Just the way he captures that scene is perfect. Honestly, just the way he drew the water was really perfect too.
Yes,
it did look very real, and it did look very real. And this is another part as well too that I'm pretty sure that whenever the Railway Series Book Club covers this book, they might talk about it as well. But I actually do love the little scene that Wilbert wrote about fish playing hide and seek under Percy's wheel. That was actually pretty funny. That was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, I could just imagine the fish going like.
Anyway, alright, so yeah, I don't really, like I said, I don't have too much to say on the story either. So, you know what, yeah, yeah, you're right. Originally I was gonna give it an 8 because pretty much like you, when it came to Four Little Engines, this is one of those stories where it's just it gets played a lot and everything that I could actually see some.
It's another one that's overplayed, but it's overplayed for a reason.
Like you said, pretty much just talking with you about pretty much the reason why it gets overplayed and everything. That I'm also gonna give this a 9. It actually does deserve a 9 for a good reason.
Oh yeah, just remember something else about this story before we move on.
Go ahead.
There's another illustration that I just can't hold my laughter every time I see it.
What's that?
Percy looking at the signal oh yeah. That face
he
has.
I'm gonna do something naughty here today. I'm gonna break one of the rules. Yeah. The truck's gonna put me past the danger sign. Where are you gonna do that, police? Try to take me away? You'll never take me alive.
I just love the face. when he's looking at the
same
signal.
Here.
but yeah.
Honestly, it's just like you said. It's that once we got past with Dalby, you can really see the massive improvements and the massive differences when it comes to Kenny and Dalby. They're pretty much like apples to oranges and such. There's just so much of a big difference between those two.
Pretty much. And John T. Kenny's illustrations, obviously people are gonna say they look real, and I agree. They're so real. You can feel the emotion of the illustration. It's like the illustration is talking to you.
Pretty much. Like we said at the beginning, you can feel the emotions of the settings, as well as the engines, and pretty much like I said, the way he draws them and everything. You could actually see this happening in a railway in real life and such.
Which actually did happen in real life, and I've seen the picture of this of the incident.
Unintentionally bringing this up. Yes, this action is also based on real life and everything. Although the way the engine plunged into the sea is pretty much way different. I can't pretty much at first he was scared by the way he originally fell in a railway series. I would hate to see the look on his face if he felt the same way that engine fell in real life into the sea.
Oh God, no! God, no! It would be horrific, honestly.
That poor little green caterpillar would have been traumatized for life.
Yep, and definitely there would have never been a next time there
definitely would never have been a next time. Not if the Fat Controller has anything to say about it. Anyway, all right. So the next story we're going is the very first story that sadly never made it to the TV series, and honestly, it is kind of a shame it never did. And that is Gordon Goes Foreign or whatever. Anyway,
Foreign, yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, so yeah, this story we get a little bit more of a world building slash lore about engines from the other railway, about how there are some engines that do take the trains to the Northwestern Railway and everything. They sometimes stay the night and go home next day. One day, when one of these engines was visiting, basically the foreign engine, Gordon and Doug got into a huge argument about what the station in London is called. Gordon thinks it's King's Cross, the foreign engine thinks it's Euston, and Doug thinks it's Paddington and everything. When Gordon and then pretty much when Gordon wants to prove that that London is actually King's Cross and such, he tries all sorts of tricks to get to London. But none of them actually work because pretty much the driver and fireman are good at their jobs and everything. That Gordon's just like, you know what, it's not all that worth it, so I guess I'll stay here. However, one day,
if this was in the if this episode was done in the hit era, you bet your ass Gordon would have done it.
Yeah, pretty much. It could be debated upon, honestly. Because we have also seen episodes 2 in the hit era where Gordon actually can mature a little bit. So honestly, I think it would just all depend on like who was writing Gordon in that episode and what the setting would be. To be honest, because I could also see like in the hit era that Gordon would also probably just give up as well too until like the chance was given to him one day.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Anyway, please proceed.
Anyway, so yeah, speaking of a chance being given to him, so one day when Gordon was taking the train to the station, waiting for the other engine to continue the journey so he can go back home, they found out that the engine that was supposed to take the train to London turned over on its side and everything. So now Gordon is finally given the chance to take the train to London. He takes the train to London. He is very overexcited, so overexcited that once he gets to London, pretty much all the crowds come on over. Pretty much in a way, sense to like a little pre-story or at least a pre-setting to what the last story is going to be about, with pretty much crowds coming in to basically take a look at the engine, get autographs from the drivers and firemen and such. That pretty much the Fat Controller hears about it from the news and everything, and pretty much when Gordon comes back, the driver and firemen said they had a good time. But sadly, Gordon did not, because he found out that the London he went to was not King's Cross. It was St. Pancras. They named the station after a body part, sir. How humiliating is that? Yeah. But Gordon goes foreign.
With all respect, of course. With all due respect, of course.
Yeah. With all due respect, of course. I mean, like to be honest, it's not like we're very creative when it comes to our names and everything. Seriously, every kind of street name you see here is either pretty much like, you know, a number, or is either the name of a state, or it's just whatever number we decide to, or it's just pretty much whatever name we decide to come up with whenever we were drunk that one time. So
yeah, pretty much.
Anyway, so going to Gordon Goes Foreign. This is a really good story. Like, this is another like, honestly, this is a story right here that I always look forward to whenever I read this book and everything. And actually, I have a little fun little history about how I knew this story and everything. This was actually one of the stories that this was actually one of the stories where a long time ago, pretty much when I was discovering early days of YouTube and everything, and Thomas videos and such, I don't remember this channel's name and everything, and I think she is probably long dead by this point and such. But pretty much actually someone did like a Tomy remake of this story long ago and such, and pretty much like this remake always had me interested. That pretty much I always thought this was kind of like a fan episode and such. It wasn't until years later, once I finally learned about the Railway series book, and I finally saw this story, that was that pretty much like it honestly blew me away. That pretty much this was the story that inspired that Tomy Thomas remake episode and such. And pretty much reading the story again and again, it's pretty much one of those stories where every time I read it, I have a brand new fascination and brand new appreciation for the story every time that I read it and such. And it is really a shame that it never got the TV series adaptation that it deserved and everything because of budget reasons. But at the same time and such, in some ways,
I would go back to that channel. Going back to the channel. If you, as far as you can recall, Was that narration done by the person, or was it done by?
I think they used really I think they used really Russian's narration for that remake.
Okay, because I was wondering, like, they probably could have used Michelangelo's, because don't forget, people,
I
Michelangelo's
don't
also
think
narrated.
they would. Because if I remember right, I think they made that episode. I want to say either late 2000s or early 2010s. Is when they aired that episode.
And Michelangelo's narrations were already released by that time.
Hmm. All right.
Yeah, but yeah,
Well, I do
continue.
know that. I do know that it was narrated by Willie Rushton and such. So at least for what I can remember off the top of my head. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, it is a shame that Gordon Goes Foreign never was adapted into television and everything. But at the same time, in some ways, I could see, I could pretty much see that like if was to adapt this episode, especially into season three, I have no doubts that she probably would have removed any mention of London and such. Pretty much at least in the season three episode and everything, because let's be honest, it's probably not a secret to that to too many people that much anymore. But pretty much Brit's own version, or at least own vision of what the Island Sorter is supposed to be in her eyes, was pretty much very different to how Wilbert and Christopher always viewed the Island Sorter in their eyes as well.
Pretty much the way Brit viewed the island of Soda was a universal place, not a pigeonholed island, as firmly established by Wilbert.
Pretty much, kind of like a universal place where it's like magic and talking trains exist and everything. Where pretty much Wilbert and Chris saw it as like his own little island that pretty much outside of the fact that the trains talk and everything, it pretty much serves as like any other normal functioning railway and such and everything.
Exactly.
That pretty much like has its ties to like England and everything. So
Exactly.
so pretty much in a way, I'm kind of glad that this story never got it's pretty much own television adaptation and everything. Because honestly, this makes the story a very unique and very special in this book. The fact that it's the very first story that never got adapted into a TV series. So pretty much that kids that pretty much grew up with the TV series and everything, and once you start reading the Railway series and everything, they'll finally start having original stories that never made it to the television series for one reason or another and everything, and pretty much gives them new material to look forward to and everything.
You know what? You brought some good points. I'm actually kind of glad that the story never made it to TV, because yeah, Brit would have probably replaced it Brit would have probably replaced
Yeah, she probably would have replaced London with something like Big Station or something like that.
yeah, and I don't think the argument between Duck, Gordon, and the big engine would have worked.
Yeah, pretty much. But to be fair, this was done in season two. Then pretty much this was done in season two. Then most likely they probably would have mentioned London. At least in the UK version, they probably would have. Because it was still also at the time when pretty much Brit and Davis signed a contract where pretty much all stories that were to be adapted were to try to be adapted at least from word to word. No, I try not to make too many major changes to them.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
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 But
And we should mention this. Like,
mhm.
the reason why Gordon said he went to San Pancras, actually, you might not get why unless you're a diehard train person,
Yes,
like I am, and
yes.
I'll
Go ahead and
explain why.
explain.
So the reason why Gordon said they changed it is because back in 1923, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
Soder made an agreement with the LMS, or the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, so the LMS could extend their services to Sodor, and in return, the express would go all the way to Barrow and Furness,
Mm-hmm.
which was an area that was owned by the LMS.
Mm-hmm.
So basically they did that, and when the LMS was nationalized into British Railways in 1948, that area became part of the eastern part of British Railways.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Gordon took the train to the station, he took the former LMS route, which ended in San Pancras, and basically that's it. and Gordon was built in King's Cross around that area, so he spent
Yes.
his time there.
Yes. So technically, all three engines are right in terms of what the station in London is called. It's just a reason that why they remember it differently is because basically they were worked and built around the places that they were built to begin with. So yeah, Gordon's was King's Cross, the foreign engine was Euston, and Duck was Paddington.
Yes, and I also gotta remember at the time Gordon was built, he was part of the LNER, or the London Northeastern Railway, which was a
Mm-hmm.
different railway company. Doug was built as part of the Great Western Railway, which we all know that. So, and of course, the Big City Engine was built in for the LMS.
Yes.
And yeah, so this is a story that if you're not if you're not a diehard train fan like we are, you're probably not gonna get this.
It can get confusing a little bit, but thankfully it doesn't get too confusing and such. At least for some kids, for some kids, they just basically see it as Gordon, wanting to go to London to prove that basically he's right and such. A simple story, and like I said, but it's also really good, very very good, and it definitely has some really good illustrations. Definitely my favorite illustration is basically when Gordon is just basically ready to go to London and everything, and you see him basically flying over the viaduct and everything. That shot that Kenny drew was really fantastic, nicely done.
I agree. And my that's my favorite illustration from the story. But my second favorite is just the illustration where Gordon is looking at the top of her head like, "Yep,
No,
sir,
sir,
I did not."
I didn't. I've been lied to this whole time, and I just found out that Santa Claus wasn't real either.
Shut up.
I mean, to be fair, that's probably what Gordon was feeling when he first saw the London. Like, as soon as he saw that, it's kind of like an equivalent of like pretty much like an elderly person going back to like the childhood hometown and everything, and they saw that like everything, or at least most stuff, has pretty much been changed right before their eyes. And when they come back home, they're just kind of like, "Have I been lied to this whole time? Am I not real?"
Yeah, that's kind of sad,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, it's sad, but it's the harsh truth, to be honest. And
Mhm.
I mean, Gordon kind of found that harsh truth. So, but at the same time, I think that's another reason why the story works as well too. And yeah, going back to Gordon, this is honestly the first story where, it's like Bonnie said, he has really matured since pretty much the last story we saw him, which was like Gordon the Big Engine, because. Yeah, it's like Bonnie said, and pretty much not only
yeah.
this was like not only this was like him all era Gordon and such, but if this was like pre Gordon the Big Engine Gordon, he would definitely have found a way to go to London, no matter how hard it would have taken. He probably would not have cared like if basically he had broken down or came off the rails and such. He would find a way to get to London if he wanted to. But no, in this story, like, he basically tries 3 times just to get to London, and when he found out that all those 3 times had failed, he pretty much gave up. Like, he pretty much owned up to it and be like, "Alright, well, I guess I'm not going to London. I guess they'll never find out my reasons and such, so, whatever. I like pulling the express anyway." Like, if that doesn't tell you, like, how far Gordon has come as a character, then I don't know what will. And to be honest, I think this is what Paint Pots and Queens should have been about.
Yes.
It basically really should have been about Gordon trying so hard just to prove to everyone, or at least trying so hard just to get the things he wants. It doesn't happen, and at first he's ready to throw in the towel and basically give up and almost wait for the right time to show itself. And when the right time does show itself and everything, then you could pretty much tell the excitement in Gordon's voice, and you're excited with him. That pretty much like he's pretty much given the dream come true, that he's finally going to be able to go to London and everything, just like he always wanted and such. And to be fair, that's what Paint Spots and Queens should have been about. It really should have been about Gordon, wanting to try to pull the royal train, but he knows he can't do it. And then once Henry breaks down and such, he's given that chance because he earned it and such. And in a way, and pretty much in a way, he kind of did earn it a little bit. In this episode as well too, that pretty much he was being mature and he was ready to accept the fact that he was probably never going to get to London in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
One thing I should mention about this is the Big City Engine, the engine that That engine is a big jerk, honestly.
To be fair, we don't really get to see him all that much. To be honest, we
Well,
only really got to saw him.
from just this story alone, that engine's a big
I know,
asshole.
I know, I know. But even so, like, yeah, I do agree that, like, in a way, and in like the tone of voice and the way he says it, it does come off as a little jerkish and everything. But pretty much at the same time, like, we don't really get to know him all too much to say that, like, he's a jerk, like, overall and such. It was probably just a little, he was probably just either a little offended in a way, or maybe that, like, he probably just thought that Gordon was remembering it wrong and everything. So, who's to say?
And that character made it to merchandise, even though he never appeared in the TV episode.
Yes, that's actually true, and yes, that's actually true, and we're gonna, and to be fair, this is not going to be the only time where, we're pretty much Railway Series characters are going to get their own, like, sort of, merchandising as well too, whether it be Wind Train or pretty much Erdl or pretty much take along as well too and such. So like I said, this won't be the first time where something like that will happen.
I remember. I still can't remember the. I still can't remember the day when I was searching up, the take along toys one day for curiosity, and then I see one for Big City Engine. I'm like, holy shit! Did they made one for Big City Engine? I was shocked, honestly.
Yeah, same here. Honestly, just go a little bit, more trivia fact. But my first winning Railway Series character that was based on the Railway Series was actually Mike. Long before they finally introduced him, Rex, and Bird to the CGI series.
I had no idea who the fuck he was until season 20 came along.
Neither did I at this point.
Well, Soldier's Legend of the Lost Treasure, because I saw the film before season 20 aired. But yeah, and my first one was Coldy.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, who the fuck is this character?
Actually, now that you said that, I'm a little curious. But when you turn Coldy around, how did you felt that, like, there was a face on his back, literally almost on his butt?
Oh my god! I had a feeling you were gonna ask that question.
To be fair, it is an interesting question.
I was more confused than creeped out, and it wasn't until I found that. Well, I should mention this now, even though we're not gonna get to that book until season 3.
Okay.
But I found it weird that they had to put the faces at the back of them instead of coming up with something else. But at the same time, I understand because
yeah,
it's a mountain railway.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. They have to look back and everything. So, I could just imagine, like, anytime they're ready to go back, the driver's just like pushing a lever or at least pushing a button, and pretty much like the face, like, from the front just kind of morphs into the back cab and such.
Kind of creepy, but understandable.
Yeah. All right. So going back to Gordon goes forward and such. I'm not gonna go too much far into this, just in case if you have something to say about this book, or at least the story and everything. But overall, to me, this is still a really fun story and a really damn good one. That, you know what, it does deserve it. I'm giving it a 10. This story really does deserve a 10. It's just that good, honestly.
No arguing with you there. This story is a 10 for me as well.
All right,
no argument.
All right, so we both have a 19 out of 40 so far.
Yeah, no argument with you as well. This for this being not adapted. Like, man, this is a really fun story.
It is,
and it's kind of funny as well. Like, it's just hilarious to see the Big City Engine, Gordon, and Doug arguing for just over a stupid station, and then James comes up saying, like, "Shut the fuck up! You're not letting me sleep. We can all agree on something." What's that? London's not Houston.
I do love that. Is that moment and just okay? It's actually that moment, and it's actually the ending too that really sells that story for me. Just basically seeing Gordon's big disappointment when he finally reached London and found out it's not all that it used to be.
And there are more lines that make me laugh, like this line right here: "Stupid thing, I have no patience."
Stupid yourself. London's Paddington. Paddington, you hear? And yeah, going back to Russian, he really sells this story too. He really sells this.
Definitely. But yeah, like this is a fun story. Like it's really, I would say it's really
It definitely gets you
get to
excited
achieve
every time you
something.
read the story from this book. It gets you
Yes,
excited from beginning, and pretty much once you finish it, you're pretty much still excited. You're pretty much still excited after you got done reading it.
yeah, and I also kind of this is something I noticed is that no one comes out on top at the end of the story. No one
Pretty,
comes out on top.
pretty much, yeah. Actually, yeah, pretty much, yeah. When you realized it, that pretty much that, like, yeah. Not only was Gordon disappointed that that London was not, King's Cross, but also technically Duck and pretty much technically Duck and the Big City Engine was also wrong too about pretty much what station is London named after and everything.
So basically, they wasted their time arguing, and no one came out on top. So
Pretty much.
oh, the fucking irony.
The fucking yeah, the fucking irony, but it makes for a really good ending.
Yes. So there's no argument with you there, man. Like this is automatically a 10. This is a great story.
Alrighty, well, this story was great, but the next story,
Not so much.
yeah. Go ahead, you first. All right, so here we go, double heather.
All right. So double header. So after Gordon comes back from London, the Fat Controller decides to give him a rest, and so James isn't. So he puts James in charge to do his work, and well, James gets conceited about it, and he delivers this line. You know, little Cherry, I'm an important engine now. Everybody knows it. They come in crowds to see me flush by. The heaviest train makes no difference.
I'm
They
as
they
regular as clockwork. They
never
almost
late,
do.
always on time. That's me,
Says
says
you.
you.
Yeah.
And well, after that, Toby is Trump. Oh, did I hit the microphone hard?
No, you should be okay.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
That's all right.
So anyway, after that whole ordeal, Toby is on the line. Toby's trundling down the line. I don't know. Maybe he's going to be repaired or something.
Yes. Pretty much. So, off screen, pretty much the narration says that Toby's pretty much going to the works because the Fat Controller sent him there because just like Edward, his parts are getting worn and he's starting to clank as well too. So basically, hopefully, we don't have another old iron on our hand. Well, actually, when you kind of think about it, okay, it's not really much old iron in the sense that James is not chasing down Toby with a lasso and everything, but it's just more that now James is the one that's rescuing pretty much an old iron in a sort of way and pushing him all the way to the works.
Yeah. So pretty much Toby's trundling down the line, and he's going to the works to be mended. And on the way there, he has to stop because his water tank is kind of weak in a sort of way that the water goes down very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has to stop in order to refill water. But there's this new stupid signalman that tells him to refill with water at the next station. They try to tell him that Toby has a problem that they need to refill automatically, otherwise, he's gonna run out of water. But this new stupid signalman doesn't listen, and he tells him to take on water at the next station.
Mm-hmm.
Nearing the next station, Toby runs out of water because he hurried, and well, he's stuck on the main line.
Yep.
News of Toby being stuck on the line reached the station where James is waiting, and so the driver tells him that hey, we need to push Toby, but James is like, ah, fuck that, I ain't doing that bullshit. And then immediately, everyone
Pretty
turns
much gets
out
called out
against
by
him.
everybody.
Everyone turns out against him.
And
Pretty
James
much,
is just like, okay, I'll do this, but it's not like I like him, all right?
oh, they were trying. It looks like they were trying to cancel him, like that illustration.
It did. It really did. It really did. It looked like the passengers and the crews were getting ready to draw out their pitchforks and torches at James.
Cancel James.
Cancel James. Cancel. Honestly, to be fair, if James did have a Twitter, he would probably be canceled soon.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, definitely. James had a Twitter account.
He
would be gone.
he definitely would. He probably tweeted out something like, "Steam trams aren't rescue engines," and he gets kicked off. What? Why am I getting canceled? I'm just saying the truth. What? What's wrong with that? And Thomas
Oh
is
my
like,
God.
James, we need to talk.
We need to fucking talk. But yeah, so after the passengers get mad at him for not for disagreeing.
Pretty much make it Toby strand on the line and pretty much almost like thirst himself to death and such.
So James relents and basically by force of the driver, he pushes him all the way to the works.
Because as the driver says, it serves you right for being cross.
And I can imagine James being like, "Motherfucker." and then two little boys come in and basically made their own predictions, saying like, "Hey, you know what I think? I think James couldn't pull the train, so Toby had to help him." And I'm sad that this didn't. I'm sad that this is not part of the original story. But to be honest, I don't care because it's more hilarious. It's like Toby comes out on top and James loses.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. And pretty much, he kind of deserved it a little bit too.
Yeah, he did deserve it, honestly.
So
double header. If you guys remember in my season 3 review before my old channel got taken down, I wasn't a big fan of this episode.
Same here. Like, yeah, same here. Once I got to Time for Trouble as well too, in my season 3 review, I pretty much gave that episode a Met rating.
Because if you think about it, that episode, nothing pretty much happens in that episode.
And it's kind of the same thing right here in this book, where pretty much, I mean, to be fair, at least in my point of view, so I'll just give just a little quick review before I give my full
Sure.
one and such. But pretty much, there are some stuff in the book version that does make it a little bit better than the TV series version in a way. Outside of the illustrations and such, there are still some good laughs. This episode does show and everything. But pretty much much like in the TV series, the story is just pretty much like a big nothingness in the end. Honestly, it's pretty much one of those stories where like you could just skip it and really you're not gonna be missing too much.
Yes, pretty much, because nothing pretty much happens. It's basically Old Iron light.
So it's sort of Old Iron, but it's just more. I guess
It's like
a
Old
dull version of Old
Old
Iron.
Iron, but without the fun.
Yeah, pretty much like that. It's like Old Iron, but take away fun.
Take away the fun, pretty much, or in other words, Old Iron light.
Yeah. Old Iron Light, or just gonna be more for like anime fans and such. But Old Iron 4Kids version without the chase scene. Pretty much how about this? Old Iron made by EA. So pretty much, if you want to see the chase scene, you have to pay them $10 extra for it.
Perfect. Fuck EA.
Yeah.
Fuck EA so damn hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here.
And say no, never mind. Well, I should say right now, fuck Konami as well.
Yeah.
Fuck Konami and fuck EA.
And fuck fun. Nah.
Nah.
Anyway, let's go back.
But yeah, going back to the story, honestly, the illustrations do make me at least interested in the story. Like, I do love the first illustration where James has like a smug face and Toby's kind of looking at like, oh boy, here we go again with this asshole.
Yeah, I do like that. you know what? It's like I said, the illustrations. Honestly, it's more so the illustrations that kind of saves the story a little bit for me in the end. Just for more of the fact that like they kind of add the fun a little bit.
Yes, it's stuff like this that kind of makes an unfun story kind of fun.
Yeah, especially like you said in our last illustration, where pretty much James is just covering himself in steam, and Toby is just pretty much, yeah, take that.
Yeah, and another thing that sells it for me is Willie Rushton. Like,
yeah, same here.
If that beginning word that I just voiced when I was doing the synopsis doesn't tell you anything, I don't know what will.
Yeah.
Okay, behind the scenes, guys, that little intro has become like a running gag for me.
Yeah, true. And it's coming from someone that's working with this guy.
Yeah, so you can tell that how much I adore that little intro where little Toby, yada yada yada.
Little Toby, I'm a red hot shit now. Everybody knows it. I just spat out bullshit that means nothing in the end, and I'm gonna get karma for it and such. But I say it anyway because I don't know.
Says you, the one that has the worst book on my list.
Pretty much Toby said, pretty much Toby should have been like, Toby should have been like, says you, says the same engine that crashed into a tar wagon earlier ago after calling me dirty. Oh, da da da
Oh!
da.
But you know something? This is something I noticed. This is the last time we're gonna see James and Toby interacting.
It is. It really is. Not only in the Railway series, but actually in the TV series too for a very long time.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because those two had a good chemistry together.
They did, but at the same time, I could kind of understand why Wilbert was hesitant to do more stories with those two and such, because I kind of had a feeling that he was kind of afraid that he might start to get repetitive if pretty much like all of James's accidents, or at least like incidents, kept on happening because of like whenever he sees Toby and such.
I can see why. And actually, this story is based on a real life incident where Toby's bassist actually took a part in.
Yes, that's actually true. Much like in real life, Toby's real life counterpart actually also got stranded on the main line too.
And so it had to be rescued. So kind of funny, like how real life meets art in this story.
Pretty much, and yeah, we're actually going to see that again too. Again, once we get to the end of the season as well.
Yes, definitely. So doubleheader. The only thing that saves the story for me are the illustrations and Willie Rushton's narration, and to that, that adds up for me. Well, before I give my rating, I should say this.
Go ahead.
I was kind of debating as to which one of the two versions was kind of worse, the TV episode or the book version. I would probably say the TV episode is much worse.
Yeah, I do agree with you there.
Cause aside from the ha ha at the end,
Ha ha.
it's an episode that I wouldn't mind skipping because
Yeah,
it's boring as hell.
yeah.
So I would say the book version is somewhat better than the TV episode, and with that combined with the illustrations and Willie Rushton's narration, that for me adds up to an acceptable 6.
Okay, well, you know what? Guess what? I'm also giving it a 6.
Wow,
so
really?
we're still in the same rating. We're still in the same rating. So we might actually get the same grade. This might actually be a first because like I said, I think the only other time, I mean like outside of like Percy the Small Legend, but that was more so for final ratings. The only other time we're pretty much both our ratings from beginning to end matched was in Thomas the Tank Engine and such. We're pretty much all stories for both of us were pretty much 10s.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, the last story. Hopefully, we keep that record for the next story.
Well, let's just see. But before we get to the last story, so pretty much, yeah. You pretty much summed up everything about how I also felt about the story. Originally, I was ready to give this a 5. I was so very close on giving this story a 5 and everything. But reading it again for the last time, and even listening to Willie Rushton's narration, I was just like, okay, you know what? This story is not as bad. It really wasn't as bad as I was making it out to be, and honestly, it was just more so I got like, pretty much I got used to the TV series version of this episode and everything. That basically I was about ready to see the book version, it's just pretty much the TV series version and nothing more. But what also makes the story work in the book version and in the TV series version is that at least in the book version, there's no like gaps in between in the TV series. Because another reason why the TV series didn't work in terms of this version of the story is that like there was so many moments where it kept on pausing in a way, and there was also many moments where there was so much gap in between and everything. Pretty much it was just like Toby trailing along, as I said, the main line and everything. That pretty much that's another reason why the story really just evolves amounted to nothing in the end and everything.
I was also gonna say, like, at least the story's not like Paint Pots and Queens. For Paint Pots and Queens, the book version failed miserably because
yeah,
the reason why it failed is because pretty
much it was just like a complete mess and such, and pretty much Wilbur did not. At the very least, I just say that like the Queen's correlation kind of in a way, I guess you could say, did kind of force Wilbur in a way to write a different ending, just so that the timeline of the Queen's correlations took place right around the same time the book version did and everything.
Yeah, and also it also doesn't help that Gordon never got a proper send off in
Pretty
that
much,
book.
yeah. Which pretty much, at least in the book version of Doubleheader and everything, the setting is still there, the plot is still there, and I was actually very surprised when reading it, but I was just like, you know what? Okay, yeah. If you did not have the time skips or anything, or at least the parts in the TV series where like no narration was being done, the story actually does flow by quick enough and such. It flows by quick enough and everything to where you can still enjoy both the illustrations and the laughs that the story does still offer you. That pretty much at the end of the day, it still gives you as like a fun little story in the end and everything. So that's the reason why I'm giving it a 6. So I don't have that much more to add and everything because pretty much Barney also pretty much took all the points I was also going to say with this episode as well. So. Alright, we got the last story of the book. The Fact
Yeah.
Controller's Engines, aka Thomas and the Special Letter in the TV series version.
Yep. So take it away, man.
Alrighty, here we go. Alright, so Fact Controller's Engines start off with Thomas pretty much bringing Annie and Clabell to the last station and everything. Once he gets to the junction, that's when he realizes that both Toby and Percy are going to the big station as well as Thomas. And that's when they suddenly realize that something must be happening then if all three of them are going to the big station. And pretty much the theories are kind of confirmed when 7 engines from the other railway started entering the Northwestern Railway and such. So pretty much Thomas, Percy, and Toby, along with the other engines on the island of Sodor, are pretty much going to the at the big station and such. Where the Fact Controller announces his plan to basically show is that basically take all of his engines to England and everything because to show the readers that pretty much all his engines are real and such. There's pretty much no smoke and mirrors going on and everything. The engines get very excited for that. So excited that he almost caused the Fact Controller to go death again until he said silence and such. And so pretty much while the
Stop there for a second. I find it hilarious the way Michelangelo says, "Oh." No, I just imagine when I was a kid, when I first heard his narration, I thought he said, "Up."
up up yours and such. But yeah, so pretty much once the plans are all set and everything, the Fact Controller tells the engines to show the other engines their works and such, as they'll be taking over their jobs while they're away from England. So while Thomas and Ginty are practicing with coaches, Thomas, being his airhead self and everything, boasts about his race with Birdie and tries pretty much makes a fool of himself in front of Ginty when he tries to stop just an inch through the buffers. But he went too fast and everything. And pretty much he crashed the buffers and pretty much damaged his foot plate and everything. So badly damaged that Thomas almost basically ruined his chance in going to England with everybody else. But thankfully, he was prepared just in time before the Fact Controller was about ready to leave. So pretty much after that, the engines go to England. They have a grand time at first, but then sooner or later, they were just very glad to be returning home. And then that's 8 famous engines, aka the Fact Controller's engines and such.
Oh
Alright.
wait, you forgot to mention the finale line. Like those
Yeah.
others did their best, but they don't know our ways. Nothing anywhere can compare with our Fact Controller's engines.
Yes, which I will say, if the theory that the 8 Famous Engines was supposed to be Wilbert's final book in the Railway series, I can actually see that that line does actually prove a little bit that maybe there is still some truth to it and such. Because that line in a way was delivered actually does feel like a finale of sorts in a way.
Yes, yes. When you hear it and analyze it, it does kind of feel like a finale. It does feel like a finale line.
Yeah, it does. So, anyway, alright, so going to the Fact Controller's engines real here. This was another story I was about ready to give a sort of weak or at least like good rating and everything. And it was mostly because of the way the scene of Thomas's crash was being played out in the book version. So basically, in the book version and everything, and in compare with the TV series, I kind of felt that the way that Wilbur wrote this scene of Thomas really, and I still kind of feel this way in a sort of sense, really just kind of feels out of nowhere. Actually, I shouldn't say out of nowhere and such, but it just kind of feels like it was just there and such. It was kind of just there because Wilbur needed to try to find some way to build up more time so that the story doesn't become very short and such. So he just kind of figured that like, oh, fuck it, I'll have Thomas have a little crash and such. And pretty much as soon as the crash comes, and as soon as Thomas is being as soon as Thomas has just been repaired and such. On the one hand, like the crash itself is a little silly, and it does provide a little funny moment as well too, about Thomas making a fool of himself once again. But at the same time, when looking at this, I can't help but to feel that like if Wilbur really just took this scene away, or at least put something else in the scene, I felt like nothing would have changed in the story at all. It still would have been the same, and that's why I'm still very split on how I feel about this scene, because on the one hand, like I said, it does still provide funny moments and such, but on the other hand, it just feels like it's wasting time in a sort of sense, and that pretty much how do I say this? It just
It, that it pretty much and that it pretty much does nothing for you.
pretty much, yeah. It really does not do nothing for me in the end, because like I said, it just feels like Wilbur just kind of put this in there because he wanted to build up time. It shows. It really does feel. It really does feel like something he just put in there just because, and pretty much, it's not really mentioned all that much again throughout the book. That pretty much, like, in a way, it's somewhat memorable, but at the same time, it's not, and such. And I do feel like the TV series handled this scene much, much, much better, and such. And the reason why I say that is because, like, the reason why I feel like they handled it much better was just the way how it was built up and such. Yeah, pretty much, you got the nice little catchy music from Thomas's theme and such, and like, the little montage of Thomas and Oliver practicing, with the coaches and everything. And then once you finally, see the build up to the scene where Thomas is going to have that crash, and especially when that crash happens and everything, it definitely becomes a lot more memorable. It's definitely one of those scenes where any Thomas fan is going to basically remember when they think of Thomas and such. And yeah, that crash that Thomas did have and everything and serve, it did look a lot more serious than what it was in the Railway
Much
Series
more
book.
convincing, actually, because
Pretty much. And actually, yeah, fun fact: the real life basis on that crash that Thomas has, actually, the TV series is actually more faithful to that real life incident than the book version was. Honestly.
huh, interesting. That I never knew.
Yeah. I think you can look this up somewhere. I don't know if the Thomas Wiki mentions it, or actually no. I think the Thomas Wiki does actually mention it somewhere.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up while you continue.
All right, go ahead. Well, I don't have too much else to say because honestly, outside of like the really confusing scene with basically Thomas's crash and such, the rest of the story is fine. I will be honest, it is one story where it's like, well, I do agree that like it does feel like a proper ending, and I do actually see this as a finale, especially with the way the ending was written and everything. At the same time, it's one of those stories where it's just one of those stories where, like, I remember the TV series version a lot more than the book version and such, and pretty much reading the book version and such, I still sometimes kind of forget a little bit about some of the scenes in the book version and everything. Like, I don't know, like, now that I'm talking about this and now that I'm thinking about it and everything, yeah, I'm very glad that Britt and David decided to wait until, season 4 to do this episode, because the way they do that episode in their TV series looked a lot more grand and everything. And it actually did feel like in a way that episode could actually serve as like a really good proper finale for season 4 and such and everything. Just from the way that, like, it was shot and everything, and just the way they film it and everything. Whereas here in the book version, especially with like some of the illustrations and everything, it just feels alright for the most part. Like I said, there are still some illustrations that I do like. The final. Oh, go ahead.
I just looked it up, and it was an LBSCR E4.
Oh, nice.
Well, Thomas's base is an E2, but the E4 were kind of similar to the E2s, but much more powerful.
Yeah.
And wow.
Yeah.
Like, if what we were shown on TV was what happened in real life, Damn.
Yeah, yeah.
Much more convincing than that awful illustration.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much.
I
So,
can't stand that illustration. That Thomas face looks so awful.
yeah, yeah. So,
Sorry, John T. Candy. I love you. I love your illustrations, but man, that face was awful.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't have too much to say on the story because honestly, now that I'm talking about it again and analyzing the story and everything, nothing against the story. Honestly, it's still a fine story, and there is one moment I do actually enjoy it that still sometimes gets a laugh out of me. It's basically when Percy interrupts the Fat Controller after saying that people don't think they're real and such. Shame. It basically is still hilarious to me and such.
Yes.
But pretty much overall after that, I'm sorry, but yeah, now that I'm actually thinking
Uh-oh.
about this long and hard and such,
Uh-oh.
I'm basically gonna have to do it and such. I'm gonna have to give this a 5. I'm sorry, cause I really do want to like the story and such. And like I said, there is some cool things that the story does and such, and the illustrations are fine for the most part. But man, like this is another situation where the TV series just knocks this out of the park. They really did like a massive upgrade to the story because honestly, like when I read this, when I read the book version of Thomas and the Special Letters, and now thinking more about that crash scene and everything, in a way, like it kind of feels okay, I will say this: it's not as big as a disappointment as it was in like Pink Pots and Queens, because, like I said, the ending does feel like an ending in a sort of way, but at the same time, I'm kind of getting like the same feeling that I originally got from Doubleheader, where at the end of the day, it kind of felt nothing to me at the end. Like, I don't really get like, I really don't get the same satisfactory ending as I got when because like every time I watch Thomas and the Special Letters, those sets and even the endings, even the ending shots, where the engines are lined up in a special shed, in a special shed and everything. That to me, I get more of a satisfactory feel out of that because it feels so real with the way not only with the way it's shot, but even with like how Michael Darling or Junior Campbell, composed that ending scene. It felt a lot more better. Whereas just here, it just felt like, okay, the engines went away and they came back. Yay. So, yeah. I'm sorry, but much like how I told you, like, you gotta be honest how you feel about these stories. I gotta be honest how I feel, and honestly, I might read it once in a while, but this is honestly probably one of those stories where, much like Doubleheader, I probably just might skip at the end. So, yeah, I gotta give it a 5.
That was much better than I thought you were gonna. That was much better than the rating I was anticipating you were gonna give the story.
Like what? Were you Were you afraid I was gonna give it like a 3 or something, or?
I was expecting a 3 or a 4.
No, cause like I said, there were still some funny moments. The episode still offers and everything. And honestly, another good moment I do like. I actually do like another world building moment where basically Percy admits that he knows Jinty and Pug and everything too. So it gets a little more insight into his character and everything. And like I said, while I do feel like the TV series version had a better version of how they handle the ending and everything. Like I said, with the way the illustrations and even Wilbur rolled the line and everything about how the people feel that like no one can compare to their own engines. In a way, Awdry also does do a good job on selling you that ending as well too in the book version. So that's why I feel like it's a lot more fair just to give it like a middle of the road 5. It's not perfect, but it's also not the worst story out there either.
All right, so as for me, this is gonna be probably a long explanation. So get ready for this.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna start by saying that I do see your points, and I disagree with some of them.
Go ahead. That's
And
okay. Go
actually, while
ahead.
you were talking, I just remembered something that happened to me last year, and you probably know about this, but most of the viewers do not know about this. So I'll tell the story,
Alrighty.
and it kind of relates to the moral of the story.
Okay.
So last year, I went to Walt Disney World for the first time in 8 years, and I was excited.
Mm-hmm.
But the catch is that the Thing was still around, and by the Thing, I think you guys know what that is.
Yeah.
Basically, my mom told us to put on the mask on, but I was too excited that I was so annoyed that we had to wear the stupid mask on.
Mm-hmm.
So So every time I separated from them because I was in theme parks, I took the mask off because I was like, "Yeah, nothing bad, nothing bad's gonna happen. There's no such thing as that as the thing." So and they kept telling me to wash my hands and use the alcohol, but I didn't listen because I was too excited anyway.
All right.
Fast forward to a few days later, I started feeling a little bit weird,
Hmm.
but I took no notice of it. And then on our day off, that's when I started feeling ill. And when we came back from Florida, that airplane ride was so uncomfortable because I was so sick. And then when I came home, I found out that I actually caught the thing. So basically, my egotistical self, okay,
Yeah, pretty much. Your egotistical self pretty much ruined your own holiday for you.
pretty much.
Yeah,
And in a way, I kind of relate.
and actually, yeah, in that situation, I could totally understand why you would, basically find, this story, more memorable to you, because, like, much like Thomas, you can actually relate to Thomas about what happened and to you and such. So
Yeah,
that I can definitely understand.
because what happened to Thomas was because he got overexcited.
Yeah, yeah, overexcited,
For me, it was a little bit different. Where I was excited, but I didn't care for my own personal hygiene,
pretty much, yeah.
and that's why I really love the story as well. But I will say that yes, I do agree. The TV episode demolishes it, but I still do love the excuse me. I still do love the book version because I kind of relate to it with what happened to me last year when I went to Walt Disney World and I came back sick. And I also love the world building, like you mentioned, that Percy still remembers Ginty and Puck from the very first story that we read, and that finale scene, that finale is still so memorable to me. Plus that final illustration where everybody's together, marvelous, just marvelous.
Okay.
And of course with Willie Rustin's memorable narration, like the hooray, hooray, hoorays.
Hooray! Silence!
That still to me makes me laugh so hard. Alongside
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
alongside the shine that Percy said, and the fat controller just stares at him like,
Percy, do not make me get the hatchet again.
but but yeah, I disagree with the story doing nothing for you because something it does at least do something for me.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I don't have too much to say because you pretty much stole much of my thunder.
Hmm.
But this rating for me is gonna be different from yours. You gave it a
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. I am curious, so go right ahead.
you gave it a 5.
Yep.
I'm gonna give the story an 8.
Oh, okay, an 8. Alrighty. Which overall rating did we do last time? I think we did. I think we started with you, right?
Yes, we start with me, but this time your turn.
Okay. All right. So another recap, real quick. So pretty much, all of our ratings for the first 3 stories were still the same, except for this one. So for Percy Takes the Plunge, we both gave it a 9. Gordon the Foreign Engine, we both gave it a 10. Double Heather, we both gave it a 6. And then this final story was the story that we kind of split our ratings a little bit. Which, to be fair, I did actually did expect that to happen and such. So for me, with the Fat Controller's Engine, because I gave it a 5, my final score for this book came out to be a 30 out of 40, which means mine is a 75%, which is a solid C. So I was still right in a way. This book is actually still ended up being a C in the end and such. But I will say that this book actually did turn out a little bit different in a sort of sense. It definitely was not as bad as I thought it was going to be and such. So I definitely don't consider this like well, at least in terms of like weakest book overall, I definitely don't consider this my weakest book like overall in the Railway series. In terms of this season, it's very possible that maybe like it might end up being like weak, but I don't think it's going to be that bad weak and such.
So basically, yours is probably a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, it's pretty much a 7 out of 10 and such. So, alrighty. Alright, so going back to you. So, 9 plus 10 plus 6. And for the Fat Controller's Engines, you gave it an 8. So, your final score is a 33 out of 40, which your final score is a B minus, actually. So,
Yeah, but so yeah, a B. I was expecting that, honestly.
yeah. So pretty much this is another Railway series book where our grades are actually different and such in the same season, no less. So It pretty much came to the same thing as what happened with us with Four Little Engines, where basically I it was actually kind of funny because at the time that we're recording this, I literally just finished editing the audio for Four Little Engines and such. So basically, my grade for Four Little Engines was a B, and yours was an A minus and such and everything. This basically another book where basically our grades are different and such.
Yes, yes,
So like I said, overall with this book and everything, like I said, when we were getting ready to do season 2 of the Really Useful Podcast and everything, and this book was about ready to come up, I was getting ready because knowing what happened with us with season 1 and some of the other books where I thought that the books that were going to get an okay rating ended up being way more worse than we thought and everything. I was ready for this to be the same thing, at least with the last 2 stories and such. I was basically ready to have the last 2 stories be the reason this book ended up getting something like a D plus or something like that. But then once I actually started reading it for the final time and listening to the audio, I was just like, hey, you know what? This book is actually not all that bad as I thought it was. Like I said, I don't consider this my all-time favorite and such. But I will say, it's decent in a good way. It's decent where basically the first 2 stories are still masterpieces to this day, and I definitely would not mind reading them again and again. And to be fair, I definitely would not mind reading Doubleheader a little bit and such. And to be fair, if I'm feeling generous and such, I might also read The Fat Controller's Engines because it is the last story of the book and I'm already there, so I figured why not and such. So that is still a good thing right there. That like even if all the stories don't hit well with me overall, they weren't all that bad. They weren't all that bad either to begin with and such. I still definitely can say with confidence that this book did decent and such. And to be fair, it's like Bonnie said, if this was supposed to be allegedly, if this was supposed to be the final book that Wilbert Awdry was the end of the series, I definitely would not have minded that to be the case, to be honest.
yeah, yeah, and I agree because like I would say it's a good book to end things on if he allegedly was gonna end it there.
Pretty much, yeah. I do agree with you right there.
But honestly, I'm so glad he didn't because he was getting better and better.
He was, and to be honest, once we get to the second half of season 2, we are going to finally start seeing a more sort of, I guess not necessarily dark if you want to go that route, at least not yet. But we are definitely going to see a lot more realism when it came to the railway series and what the engines had to deal with based on what normal railways and real life railways had to deal with at the time and such, and that's especially going to be true with the very next book we're going to be covering.
Yes, especially since by this time, and I think you guys know by this point, diesels were starting to be introduced in British railways,
Pretty much, yeah.
and they did pose a threat to steam engines.
Mm-hmm. And
And
to be honest, I honestly cannot wait till we get to those books because off the top of my head and everything, I'm definitely really excited once we get to read those part of stories and just to see how well do they hold up and such to this day.
oh, same here. Especially me being a diehard train fanatic.
Uh huh.
So, Infamous Engines for me, on the other hand, I will admit I love this book. Like, I really do love this book. This is one of my all-time favorite books ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say like this book for me is top 5 material easily. Well, no, not top 5, top 10 material easily.
That I can easily see why, to be honest.
Like I love coming back to this book, and I think it more has to do with Willie Rushton and the illustrations more than the stories themselves. But wow, this book turned out to be way different than I thought it was going to be.
It
Like
was like again, this was kind of like Edward the Blue Engine all over, where we felt like where basically we were getting ready to say that like the stories were good, but they weren't that good. But then once we started reading and started analyzing, especially with the first 2 stories, we were just like, no, like these stories are good for a reason because they are that damn good.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I would say like all the 4 stories, even though the Fat Controller's engines gave you a lot of flaws,
Yeah.
all 4 stories for me are flawless. Even for me, Doubleheader does have a few flaws,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing that saves it is the humor the illustrations, and Willie Rushton's narration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Those
yeah,
three.
I definitely do agree with you there. Like I said, to be honest, I think Doubleheader was the one that surprised me the most with how much I changed my mind after reading that
It
story.
did too, because you guys didn't know, behind the scenes, we were basically mouth mouthing this story.
We were, and definitely with the Fat Controller's engine, I was also bad mouthing that story too, and definitely getting ready to give it a meh. And then pretty much once I started reading it for the final time, I was just about ready to get to actually give it another chance and hopefully give it a good rating. And then once I started talking and started analyzing again, that's when I realized, and that's when I realized that there was a reason why originally I left the book feeling a little dissatisfied. So yeah,
Yeah, but Doubleheader was way different. Reading it for the final time, wow, it changed my views on it.
it did. Same here. It really did change my views on it too.
And well, guys, that was the 8 famous engines. A really
Yes.
fun. This was a fun episode, honestly. Like this was a very interesting
This was another
episode.
fun episode. You know what? The first half of season 2, this is kicking off to a really, really good start. So now I'm really looking forward to coming back and finishing up the last 4 stories, and or at least the last 4 books, and basically see how well they turn out to be. Unless this whole this is not going to be like another Gore in the Pig engine finale where we get the branch light engines and we basically start bombing that book to shreds.
Yeah, the paint pots and queens incident is still fresh in our minds after
Yeah.
what happened. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if people come back to the episode just because of our outburst.
Well, I mean, like it's like they said, they basically love listening to us ranting about children's books all day long because we have no lives of our own.
Pretty much. So yeah, guys, that was 8 famous engines. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you guys want to see more episodes of the podcast, hit the subscribe button as well. Also, don't forget to check out our separate channels, All Teapot 7 for me, and Zecoa the Diesel for Zecoa. Both channels will be linked in the description below. Anyway, guys, this has been All Teapot 7 with
Sequoia the Diesel.
saying thank you for watching, and we'll be seeing you guys next week for Duck and the Diesel Engine.
And just so you know, London's not Houston, it's St. Pancreas. Everything you've been known is a lie.
Dun dun dun.
Bye bye.
Take care, guys, and we'll be seeing you guys real soon.
Bye bye.